As you know, this meeting is a regularly scheduled meeting and it's been posted according to Oklahoma laws and advertised appropriately. To begin, we'll go ahead and do roll call, and then I'll get off this page with all my airplanes and let me get somewhere else. Councilman White here, Councilman Roosevelt here, Councilman Baird here, and Councilman Allen here, and we're missing Councilman Riley so far this night. We've asked Councilman White to give us a prayer, and following the prayer, if you'd all stand and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we come before this time very grateful for the opportunity to be here and to be involved with the activities and goings on of Roosevelt City. We pray that as we discuss what's on the agenda tonight, that we'll be guided to do those things that are most beneficial for our city residents. We're grateful for those who serve in our community to protect and help keep the peace. Pray that I'll bless and watch over them. We pray at this time as we have some important decisions being made that the outcome will be most favorable to support our Constitution and uphold our freedoms. This we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, we know that the election is more exciting than our council meeting, so we're going to try to keep it fairly brief. Let's take a look at the minutes of the last council meeting. Are there any corrections or amendments that need to be made? Hearing none.
I move we approve.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilman Roosevelt. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Councilman White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have our public comment period. Anyone from the audience may take up to 3 minutes and address the council. Is anyone here that would like to take that opportunity tonight? And seeing none, I'm going to take opportunity really quickly just to clarify a few things that was stated at our last council meeting. Some of you were aware or were here that we had some representatives from, not representatives, I would say, but some individuals or citizens concerned about the shelter, and there were some statements comparing our budget compared to other areas' budgets, and there was a feeling or the impression I got is that we were not paying enough or we were not budgeting enough for our shelter. So in between now and then, I went through the council meeting again, and I put together all the information that individual had provided, and I checked that and also compared it with the size of county or city that was referenced also. So I will just go through really quickly and give some clarification to the statement that was made, just for the record. I just like to make sure that the information provided to not only us, but the public is accurate and relative, meaning we compare apples to apples. So it was commented that Summit County had a budget of $240,000. They have a population in Summit County of 36,324 individuals. Per capita, that works out to be $6.61 a person for their animal care. West Jordan, $425,000 a year. They have a population of 103,712 people. That works out to $4.10 per person a year for animal care. And in Sandy City, $850,000 there is their budget. They have 87,461 individuals in their city. That works out to $9.72 per person a year. Roosevelt City, $138,000 a year is what we budget. We have 6,000 people, but I work the numbers at about 7,000 people just because. That works out to $19.72 per person a year, which is more than double what any other county or entity pays for animal care. The proposal was to raise, the suggestion was that we had 2,275 residences or homes in our area, and the proposal was that we raise taxes or implement a tax of $5 per home per month, which is $60 a year for a family or a resident. If you divide that out into our population, and that's 7,000 people, that equals about $36 per person in Roosevelt, which would increase our yearly per person to almost $60. And again, the closest of that really is UNA County. They have a special service district. Their budget is $860,000 a year.
That's countywide.
That's countywide.
Just random.
Yeah, they have their population is about 36,000 or 39,000. That equals $23.89. So they're by far the highest of anyone. Unless we were to do what was suggested, then we would be 3 times that. So I think when we put it into perspective that way, it kind of makes a little more sense, the budget that we do have, and that we're actually spending, per person in our entity double what any other entity is spending on animal care. The other thing to note is that Duchesne County also has a budget in addition to what we spend of $133,000 a year, which makes the total of $271,000 for Duchesne County itself, which is more than Summit County and for our population, quite a bit. Just for comparison, and this is the last thing I'll say for comparison, we spend $15 per person or per capita in Duchesne County for Tri-County healthcare, for example. So we're spending $19 for animal care per person. We're spending $15 for people care. So I think we're probably okay. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't look into efficiencies, and there may be some changes in how the animal shelters ran and work on some of those things. But I think from a budget standpoint, I just wanted to let everybody know where we're at, to be fair.
Mayor, does the Duchesne County use our facility at all?
They do.
So then they also have one in like Duchesne or Altamont or other areas, or mostly?
They have a very small one in Duchesne. We talked to the county commissioners yesterday about that, and they're pretty restricted on what they can do over there. They don't have a lot of staff, and for example, stray cats and things like that. Duchesne City, for example, they'll send their stray cats over to us. I can't remember what they call it. We're the only ones that are qualified or whatever to handle those types of.
So some of that money comes to our shelter then from the county?
Correct. So the county's budget really, so our budget's $138,000. We get $55,000 from the county. The county's budget's $188,000. That's why I subtracted. That's why I said 133 from them and 138 for ours, accounting for that 55,000. Either way, it's 271 between the two of us. But we do get 55,000 out of their 188,000 budget, which means just them 133,000 for us, 138,000.
And Scott, you've been looking into some of the efficiencies and things that maybe we need to do in terms of running our animal shelter, right? Isn't that one thing?
Yeah, we're gonna look at that. I want to wait until the investigation comes back and see where the deficiencies are, and then put a game plan together and go from there. But yes, there'll be some changes over there, and, and processes and policy and those types of things that, yes, that will be coming.
And again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't change and do better over there. What I'm saying is that the amount of money that we spend over there just needs to be utilized better.
I appreciate the per capita breakdown. I think that's a better comparison.
Yeah. And if we are spending that much, that shows me that we have an animal problem here that we need to address, and we'll address that in some of our policies as well. And how do we put that responsibility back on the pet owners versus just kind of assuming that responsibility and then having the rest of the public pay for that. So, all right. We'll move along to our appointments. First up, we have Resolution 202304, the Airport Board revisions. We talked about in our last meeting, kind of an oversight. We have 7 members to appoint. However, 3 of the 7 members are non-residents, and one of those is a city employee. And so we talked about whether it's a resident or a city employee, they would be treated the same on that board. And so that adjustment has been made. Do you have the copy of that resolution?
You know what, they didn't have an attached, so.
Do you have it right there?
You can probably run over and send a copy over.
Okay, we can go to the next. We can talk about a couple other things if you want to do that.
Okay, yep, we'll do that.
And we'll move on to, we can do the interim police chief appointment real quick. At this point, Alan Tucker has been asked by our city manager to fill in until we can officially appoint someone. I don't know if the council has had much time to give it much thought. My personal feeling is I'm content with Alan and what he's been doing, and would suggest to the council that we continue with that appointment until we actually fill that position. And so that would be my recommendation to the council. Any thoughts?
How does Alan feel about it?
Well, we've been doing it for a little over a week, and it's going. We're getting a lot of support. The city's been fantastic. So.
Any concerns, questions? Seeing none, would entertain a motion to officially make Alan our interim police chief.
I'll move.
Second. Okay, motion by Councilman Roosevelt and second by Councilman Allen. Let's do roll call. Councilman White.
Aye.
Councilman Roosevelt.
Aye.
Councilman Baird.
Aye.
And Councilman Allen. Aye. Okay, motion passes. Travis, you're officially in as the interim, so.
Yeah, okay, I'll do my best.
Or what did I say?
Or you said Travis. I get it all the time. I don't
Hey,
even.
you can't laugh. I know, I messed up too. We've got Hendricks Engineering Firm, and I'm just.
I've messed up so many names.
You know, you have an excuse. I've been here once. No excuse for that. Melissa's not here yet either. Let's go ahead and talk about the seminary expansion discussion. This is something that we already looked at just recently. We looked at the master plan, talked about, some streets in that area. I'll let you, Scott, go ahead and lead that discussion.
I was hoping Drew was gonna be here, but, apparently he's not. So after sitting down with Drew, we're kind of getting to the lifespan of our current cemetery. So we'll be completely filled up in right around 5-year mark. So we've got to work through a process to decide, do we want to utilize the land directly south of the cemetery, or do we want to look at other options? Other options would be to use the rest area, or go into a joint venture with, say, the county and other people that are using it and look at going to different locations. Some of the problems that if we use up that land directly south of, that's the largest piece of land we have off of I-40 for big box stores and economic growth, those types of things. So we really need to be careful on what direction we proceed with the cemetery. So it is a need, it's something we've got to get rolling, but we just need to sit down and decide what direction we're gonna go and start proceeding with it, because we're running short on time when it comes to the lifespan of the cemetery. So, so this will be your future.
Does anyone have any strong feelings in either way? I talked to some of the staff today. Dean, he mentioned he was in favor of just going with what we have planned. He didn't feel like where it's off of Highway 40, and we already have some government buildings in that area that we're not going to miss much opportunity on the commercial. He was probably the most vocal. Yeah, I'm just trying to say what he said verbatim, pretty much. I can't think of anybody else that really you had a couple questions, Ryan, I know.
Yeah, my thoughts is I just thought of Drew, where he's been down there for the last 17, 18 years, what his thoughts was. I know he's been planning on this phase for quite a while, so I just wanted to know what his thoughts was. If he was turning a different angle or.
I spoke with Drew. I did speak with Drew and talk to him a little bit about that, to try to get his feeling. I wish he was here tonight, but
He said he'd be here at 6.
okay.
You want to table this until he gets here?
Well, we can't table much more, or we're gonna run out of things. But we can. Let's go ahead and wait for him. He's gonna be here at 6.
Just for discussion though, you mentioned maybe using other property. What, did you have some in mind?
Yeah, so that rest area right up in front is actually being incorporated into it already. Some of the stuff is, what do they call it? The mausoleums. So, cemeteries, some of them are starting to really lean towards cremation. And so you're starting to see a lot more of those. If we go to the mausoleums, we can actually put quite a few up in that area. And I think that's already planned in the current design. So those are some of the things we can do up there. We can actually turn that all over to, I think they said, if we turn just the rest area into a cemetery, that would give us another 4 to 5 years in addition to the 5 that we already have. So it'll push us out to 9, 10 years, is my understanding of that.
And we did talk about that rest area too, a little bit with the staff. Dean, he likes the idea of a rest area. There were other comments that were like, is it really even being utilized? There was a comment, Chief Tucker mentioned, go ahead. Why don't you tell them what you...
Yeah, as far as the Roosevelt City Police is concerned, that's basically the only area that a homeless person or somebody can stay the night, like the people on their bikes when they camp. That's designated as that area where if they try to do it at one of the parks, they always get called in. Somebody's always concerned about it, but that is designated as that area. We've had some people that have broke down in their car. They needed to wait a couple of days to get it parked. You know, that's where they went, stayed the night there and got their car fixed.
Just some thoughts. Yes, Hal?
Okay, could that rest area be relocated? We need to relocate the rest area to that cemetery.
That is true. I don't want to dig up all this.
And so real quick, I talked to Hunter County Commissioners a little bit about this too, and they do understand, but I wanted Drew to talk about this, and who's using the cemetery. There's a lot of county residents, Ballard residents, Mooney County residents using our cemetery. As a matter of fact, I think the non-residents are more than actual residents using it. And so I spoke with them, and they're even willing to sit down and come to the table on maybe a one-time donation to do the improvements on the cemetery. But these are some of the things we need to talk about and discuss.
I have a suggestion. you know, whether or not we use the rest area as cemetery or not, we're still gonna need, that, even if that lasts 5 years, that's only 5 years. And so we're still gonna need to either move forward with the plan that we have below the cemetery, or we need another spot. In my mind, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to discuss it too much. We just roll with what we have unless another option comes available. At that point, and there is another spot that we could put it that's feasible, instead of expanding south, there's another feasible option somewhere else. Then I think we discuss it at that time, but we work on it diligently in between now and whatever time we discuss it in the future or find that other option, and then bring it to the council and say, here's what the plan was to do, here's an alternate plan, which one do you prefer? Because to me, I just wouldn't want to get into a pickle saying, yeah, let's not do it there, and then not be able to find a good spot. For example, let's say even the county, they came in and said, hey, we got a piece of land out by the industrial park or something like that. To have a cemetery out there probably is not.
So let me do this. So let me explore some options. I'm bringing you back some options. We'll push forward with this, right?
Unless we have a better option.
Unless we have a better options, and I'll start reaching out to stakeholders and sitting down with Drew to see if there is a better option.
Right.
And if that option is available, and if there's other stakeholders that want to go in, if there's another piece of land, or those types of things, that's what I'll do. I'll see if I can find some other options that may be considered, and then we just proceed with what we currently have.
Yeah, because if our concern is, it sounds like the main concern is just that could be utilized as good commercial property, then let's go out and find a place that's maybe as good or a better option to put that. And then once we have that, bring it to the council, and then we can make a decision. Yeah, let's keep it there, or you know what, let's move it to that other spot. It makes more sense.
Okay, I'll go with that direction from you guys, and I'll see if I can get some other options put together that may supersede that. If not, we'll just proceed forward with the master plan and move forward.
I have some information I was gonna bring up during our committee report that may, I don't know,
Yeah, go ahead.
good time. So the hospital acquired 14 acres to the north of the hospital down off the gulch and across, I think it's Cottonwood Creek, is that what they call it? Yeah. They're wanting that to become a park and work with the city and do a bunch of stuff down there. If that worked for a park, is it possible the area out by
Stonegate.
Cove and Stonegate to use for a cemetery and use that for a park? That's just a thought that I had.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about before.
No, that's a good thought. And I think that's what we do in between now and the next time we discuss this, is we look at those different options and then at least have options for the council to consider. Because I get the concern, but until we have a better option, it really doesn't make any sense to deviate from what we already have planned unless there's already another alternative.
Yeah, I think in favor of what you're saying. This was approved in our master plan about a year ago, so I think it's kind of unless we can't.
That's an option that we might pursue to see if that's
Right.
possible.
So let me get this correct. We have city land out at Stonegate. So you're looking at possibly maybe using.
Well, the land at Stonegate was donated to the city for a park when the city took on that area to be part of the city. Jim Marshall has been talking with Preston Catholic, and Preston mentioned that was gonna be, but Jim was thinking there's enough area down around there that maybe that could fill that need for a park. And then I wasn't aware of the cemetery thing, but if that was a need and we were able to take care of a park there, then that may be open to use for.
It's definitely an option, and it sounds like that is almost a for sure thing. Just before you came on, Ryan and I and Jim and Strata, I went down there and looked at that, and it would make a phenomenal nature park, not like, not like a highly well-groomed area, but just, you know, a few picnic tables, you know, dam off the Cottonwood Creek and make a little lake pond there that they could fish at, and it would be awesome. And so part of the deal would be if the hospital donates that to Roosevelt City, then we would take it upon ourselves to improve that, develop it into something like
And then
that.
potentially freeing up the other.
Yeah. So Preston feels like there's money out there for grants and things for conventional recreation that we could get. And so that's why we kind of, and he's the chairman of our Trails Committee, I guess you would call it, in the Arts, Parks and Rec Committee. And so we've tasked him to work with that and kind of brainstorm an idea that he could present to the council as well in the future. So
I'll sit down through and maybe give you some options.
tell Drew he's safe for a day or two. I just feel like it'd be better if we had a couple options to choose from before we make a decision on whether to stay or
And I
not.
would-
I don't know if I'm.
I would agree with that too, because we've been pushing this off, and continually we've been pushing this off. We just need to decide on a direction and start going that
I
direction.
agree.
So instead of pushing this off another 2 or 3 years to where now we're on a deadline in a year and a half that we're not gonna have any room, we've got to start that process now, so we're not putting ourselves in a dilemma when we're running out of room.
And I think that's a good plan moving forward. Just let's identify some other options. And then as soon as we have some viable options, bring them to the council and we'll consider them and see.
Yeah, this isn't viable, but I think we ought to use our Main Street property for the mausoleum.
Oh, hey, yeah. Great.
It's
You know
only-
what? Or a haunted house.
Yeah, it could be both, right? There's Drew.
Hey, Drew, real quick, we're about done. We decided to move the cemetery to another spot.
The whole thing.
The whole
Yeah.
thing.
So you need to start digging.
I quit.
I'm just kidding. What we decided is if we are gonna look at other options, let's look at other things and see if there are any other viable options. If there are, bring them and we'll consider them along with this. But right now, it's really hard to say, yeah, let's go a different route when we really don't have any knowns, places to go. Tell us real quick, just your feelings on what you'd like to see.
Well, it makes sense
You
to
can pull your
me.
thing down to talk.
Good, perfect. Just as an employee and managing the cemetery for quite a few years, it makes sense logistically to keep things together. But, you know, as well as from a city standpoint of maybe it doesn't work there, that's something you guys are gonna have to decide, but it makes sense to keep it together to me. That's my opinion.
Because you have all your equipment
Yeah.
and stuff down there.
Equipment, when I meet with families, we've got one thing, we sell the grave spaces and then it takes years to utilize those spaces. So a family will come in and purchase, say, 8 or 10 spaces for a family plot. That could take 100 years to utilize. But without spaces to sell, we've got to move. And we're to the point where we've got to figure this out pretty quick. We've got about 5 years, roughly 5 to 7. We've got to be somewhere within 5 years though.
Are you running out of spaces to
Yes.
sell right now?
Right.
You don't have any, or you?
We've developed everything we do have, other than the south of the road that was purchased for the expansion.
So when you say you developed it, you sold all the lots for what you do have?
We're selling all the lots. We do have 5 years left at the rate we're
Selling,
selling.
yeah, okay.
But keep in mind, that doesn't mean we're all filled up with it's the purchase that we have to have first, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
And that doesn't include people that possibly didn't buy ahead of time that they need a spot.
Exactly right.
So that's just those pre-planning, right? That's what you.
So we have, at the rate we're selling, every year we're selling, we've got about a 5 to 6 year capacity. So give you a little perspective of what we got there, but.
Well, I would say, you know, I'm inclined to leave it where it's at unless there's a really good option somewhere else. Like it just makes 100% sense to do that. and it's a better option than what we're going with. But I think that's where our homework comes in. Let's just look and see what our options are and see how they compare with what we're planning.
One of my biggest concerns, I'll just put a plug in, we've had 2 5-year master plans that we've almost cycled through. And both of those master plans included expansion and a building for us to meet in. Right now, we've got a tiny facility. And it's quite honestly embarrassing to meet families that are grieving 20 people in the middle of winter, and half of them can't even come in because my building's a 8 by 10 office that I get to meet these people in. So it
doesn't really meet COVID spec.
It doesn't meet COVID spec, but it's outdated. We need to think about that as we're developing as well, where we want to go, but that needs addressed, whether we keep this, because I still have to meet people in this area as well. If we duplicate that, we're going to have to duplicate it. So.
Just a little bit here, it's on our 1-year plan right now with CIDs. And so it's
The building?
no, the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like $1.5 million total cost.
So,
You kidding me right
and
now?
that's low.
Nothing but the best.
Well, that includes
So
the
thanks to
expansion,
the, yeah.
building, everything.
So it's on the CID in 1 year, so if we probably need to start moving.
We need to
forward.
make sure where we're going soon. So we need, if
So options need to happen, so if we want to get in front of CID, we would probably want to get it in June, would be probably start that process in
right,
June.
so if you want to, as far as other options, we're gonna need to know if there are any, and if they're even worth pursuing fairly quickly.
So we'll jump on that, me and Drew, put some feelers out and maybe, see if there's any other viable options. If not, we'll just proceed forward with what we have.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. All right, let's go. Were you able to find that?
I was, and I sent emails to all of you, but I know on mobile devices, a lot of times the red line doesn't show up. If Ryan and I think Kurt, I sent it to both of your emails as well. If we could put it on this, then they would be able to see the red line, and it's easier to see the changes that I made. And JR, what we talked about in our meeting earlier today, making sure that there's chair, vice chair, and secretary, that was already.
Okay, perfect. Well, and I just wanted to make sure because but thank you for doing that. Appreciate that. So I guess the biggest question is then, and the only change to this would just be treating an employee, whether they're a resident or not, similar to a resident.
Yeah, and if it's hard for you guys to pull it up, I can just explain what I did.
You've got it pulled up, but you go ahead and.
We had it broken down where there were 3 different categories of people that could be on the board. Roosevelt City resident, Roosevelt City employee or official, or a person who's interested or impacted in the airport activities. In order to accomplish what you guys wanted, I separated it into just 2 groups. So now there's Roosevelt City resident or employee or official as one group, and created a defined term of city representative for that group. And then for people who are participants or impacted in some way but do not reside in the city, I just created a defined term as impacted representative. And so then when we went down, and it previously said that only certain members, depending on how many are on the board, could reside outside the city, I just used those 2 terms that I created for either only a limited number of impacted representatives could, but I didn't change the number, so the rest of it's the same. In the version that I had, it wasn't the last one that Carolyn would have had, and so the clean version that I just sent to you doesn't have the resolution number at the top, and Curtis is probably something for you to fill in if you can. And then we better double check the date at the bottom, because I originally created this in 2019, and I didn't look down there to see if Carolyn had updated the date.
This shows 2020, the one I'm looking at, but I don't know if it's.
Okay, no, that would be right. It's in that first paragraph. And that's the clean version. Do we have the red line? Or maybe you just go through and turn it on.
One I'm looking at from the email, both of them say 2019, the red line and the November 3rd clean version.
On the date on the bottom.
Yeah, they both say 2019.
So does anybody have any questions about that change? I know we discussed it in our last meeting and we felt like that would be okay.
There we go. That's what I just changed what I was gonna say.
Basically, just make sure that citizens in Roosevelt have a little bit more say on what happens in the airport, but we have this possibility of two people being on the board that are impacted, but not necessarily.
If it's a full 7-member board, if it's less than that, then only one from the impacted representative group. But the other change that's making Councilman Baird is it previously was saying that only the majority had to be made up by only people who resided in the city. Now it's saying that they can either be a resident of the city or an official or employee. So it's possible that an official or employee would serve as one of the city representatives and would actually increase the total number of non-residents on the board.
Without being the default.
Yeah.
Any questions on that?
So the way that they're appointed, mayor appoints them and we consent. So if say one of us had a problem with,
You can still say
more
no.
non-residents being on the board than residents, because.
And who we're talking about right now, everyone's a resident on the board except for Hunter, Colton, and then Clyde is the one. He's a city employee. We wanted him on the board because we wanted him to represent the Public Works Department on that board. And he's a non-resident, even though he works for Roosevelt City, and he's the one that was throwing us. We wanted him, but we really couldn't have him and still have our 2 non-residents.
But as he appoints, we do approve those appointments, right? We do reject them or?
Yeah, you approved the 5 already.
Right.
The only 2 that are up for question would be Clyde Stansfield and Hunter
When?
Webb.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I just want to clarify in the future for some reason.
And I realized I made a mistake in not putting those appointments on tonight and getting that done also, so I apologize. However, I am going to invite them to the first meeting so that they're up to speed. They won't vote or anything, but they're up to speed. And I will get that on next meeting's agenda to go ahead and appoint those other 2 positions. But the 5 you've already appointed.
Anyway, do we need a motion to approve this?
Or not to approve.
Or not?
Anyway.
Grant, did you have any concerns?
No, I'm satisfied with the way it is unless you guys ask me to make additional changes.
I'm good with it. I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Roosevelt, second by Councilman Baird.
That was just, we have to change the date at the bottom. That's.
And put the resolution number.
number. So it's referenced right now as, we've lost
It should be 2020-438.
2020-438, so we'll
And-
reference that.
If Kurt can go down and just change the date at the bottom, then you guys can just go ahead and approve this version that he's got on the screen, and you don't need to make part of the motion to make additional changes.
Okay, and then 2020-438. So would you restate the motion with that?
I move we approve the resolution that's now been fixed or
Just as.
as amended.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion by second, that's resolution 2020-438. Councilman White.
Aye.
Councilman Boozenberg.
Aye.
Councilman Berry. Aye. Councilman Allen. Aye. Okay,
I'm sorry, I believe I gave you a wrong number. I'm
it should
sorry.
be 304.
304, I'm sorry, 2020.
304.
I was looking at the ordinances.
We're not revoting. But stated for the record, it's 2023-04.
You're killing me, Kurt.
And
Sorry,
that's a unanimous vote.
Thanks for catching it, though.
I'll get those appointments to you next meeting and we'll make that finally official. So thank you. All right, next item. Let's see if I can find my agenda. Is Melissa, the advertisement of police chief position discussion. So do you want to kind of let us know what you've done and what your plans, what you're thinking would be the best?
You bet. You want me to go up there?
Sure.
Okay. So I prepared a job announcement, based on, well, first I reviewed the job description to make sure, that it's pretty accurate, compared it to some other, police chief job descriptions from other counties or cities, just to kind of make sure that was correct, which I think is good. And then created a job posting, which I've made copies for everybody. Maybe I should have just emailed it. Sorry, guys. For your review and approval. And then once I have approval on the actual job announcement, if that's something that you feel like you should approve, then we can go ahead and start recruiting for the position. Additionally, I did a job wage study, and asked all of my colleagues, county and city. Their county is a little bit funky, right? Because their sheriff, the sheriff's office generally has a jail, right? So they're also, a sheriff is also going to be in charge of the jail. But actually the wages are pretty similar to a police chief working at a city. Statewide average wage was sitting around 115. But that does include large municipalities, right? Which we wouldn't compare ourselves.
Where were we at? We were around that mark.
96.
Okay.
I
thought we were higher than that, but I think Rick at one time was able to, he was working extra shifts and get.
That is vehicle stipend, that's another 10,000, so that puts you about 106.
Right, but there won't be a vehicle stipend, for the new chief. There'll be a vehicle, just no stipend, right? Anyways, average in like-sized municipalities was around 88.9. So I think, I don't think there's any reason, we need to advertise it at a higher wage than, what Rick was at, which is great for budget, right? And I actually made a copy of this too, if you're interested. Are you interested in who makes what where?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And I also tried to not.
We have two numbers, guys, here.
Oh, perfect. A lot of times when you do a wage study, they'll give you the range, right? So our police chief makes between this and between that. And I think ranges are not that helpful because who knows? So I asked what they are actually making. So these numbers is what that police chief is actually making, not what they would start one at, not what, whatever.
I'd be interested what they actually start at because they could have been in for, 10, 15 years and have COLA and raises for different things. So it's good.
I can pull a range for you too, sure.
No, I don't know about the range. I'm just wondering what they advertise at, I think, comparison wise, because some of these are, if we took Vernal Cities, for example, and start with that, which I'm not advocating that person may have spent 15 years to get to that position. Does that make sense?
Well, it's like with Rick. So Rick has been here 15 years, and he's making 96. So if you bring on someone that's a sergeant or that doesn't have the administrative background, you wouldn't expect him to make 96.
Right.
And so it just depends on who comes on. Now, maybe we get a a great candidate that's been a chief for 10 years. That will be a different pay scale that may put them up to that 96,000.
See, that's what I was thinking is maybe we have a step that's negotiable or something, like we say this is where we want to be, but if it's somebody we really feel like fits and would help be helpful and
Yeah. So my recommendation would be to advertise the position, and say a competitive salary, and that it's negotiable and not put a number for this exact
Or
reason.
depends on qualifications.
Right,
That's what a lot of these out there say.
sure. Okay, so the couple of questions I guess I wanted to ask specifically, the requirements for, the position listed as is in the job description that had already been, you guys were already using, not before I got here, included, graduation from an accredited college with a bachelor's degree and then with master's degree preferred. And so I guess I wanted to talk that through about how important that is to you that they have, because the way it's sitting now, they have to have a bachelor's degree. So do we want to make that preferred? Do we want to keep it as is?
My personal opinion is to, I would rank an education and or experience equivalent, like
Right,
in the sense that if you have 10 years of progressively responsible law enforcement experience, or, well, I guess if you have both, I guess is what I'm saying is I don't want to qualify ourselves out of really good candidates.
yeah, so I did have that line, you'll see C, or an equivalent combination of education and experience.
Yeah.
However, I do think as the way it is now, how it was on the job description, it's like if I don't have a bachelor's degree, but I've got 15 years, I may not apply because it says I have to have one.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we wanted to just put preferred for also the bachelor's degree, unless you're passionate that they have a bachelor's degree.
I'm not hung up on that. I don't know how you all feel, but
To be honest with you, I would do exactly how I see where she's going with this. So if people may be turned off, if that's in there, I think you do exactly that. Put preferred, that will open up your candidate pool and give you guys more people to look at.
yeah, not necessary, but maybe preferred.
So if we do preferred on the bachelor's degree, then then my recommendation would be to pull off the master's degree.
Yeah.
So don't even
Yeah,
address it
master's
and just say bachelor's degree
You got a master's
preferred.
bonus.
Right, exactly.
But
But I think you do scare people away when you say bachelor's degree required, master's preferred.
And with a master's degree, they're gonna expect 6 figures if they're coming with a master's.
How many people would in police force
I know
would
that's-
have a master's degree?
There's actually, so there's quite a few. So,
well, in Hartman.
if you let's rephrase that. Let's go to the valley. If you go down the valley, like, a lot of them are gonna say, hey, you have to have an MPA or some of those qualifications to go in those positions. But the further you get out into the rural communities, you're not gonna have those. You're less likely to have someone with a master's degree. And if you do get one, you're going to pay 6 figures for that individual.
Really
I
experienced.
have a master's degree and I did not make 6 figures.
Me too.
So I'm doing something wrong.
I talked to Grant and Scott and Ryan about this today. I'm more concerned about their performance in the last 5 or 10 years.
Sure.
And when somebody applies, obviously we're going to have them put down a few references, but I'm going to tell you right now, everyone they've ever worked around, any agency they've even come in contact with is going to be a reference. I'm going to make sure, from my standpoint, we're going to call, because history and consistency, those types of things, and how they performed and how they get along with the rest of the agencies and how they adhere to policy and everything else, what's going to factor in, at least my personal opinion, more than than in education.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't know what the process is right now with RP for when they hire on officers. But at least with this and then maybe moving forward, if they're not already doing it, I would recommend having an investigator actually go visit the agencies that this candidate, whoever it is, has worked for and do a lot of poking around.
And I would agree with that, because Mayor, you're not gonna have access to certain files that an investigator would have. If we send someone out here and they sign a form, that's gonna open up their IA files, everything, all their city, or police personnel files. When that investigator shows up, there's a form they provide, and everything related to discipline and those types of items are disclosed. You won't be able to do that in the capacity you're in, only a law enforcement official would be able
Exactly.
to go and get that information.
And
But
I do
they
like
could- Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I do like the 10 years. I think that ought to be one of those requirements, like, I don't know, is 10 years too much? I feel like that's halfway through your career, right?
I agree with that. And let's go back to education versus experience. And I chatted with the mayor about this. If you take a 5-year cop and someone that has a 4-year bachelor's degree with 1 year experience, I'm taking the 5-year cop. It's one thing to learn stuff in school, but there's a whole nother principle to apply it. And what you learn on the job in 5 years is more than you're gonna learn in the classroom in 4 years.
So I think we leave B how it is.
Okay,
We just do A as preferred,
perfect.
bachelor's, and then forget about the master's.
Okay,
I think
Okay.
that part down looks pretty good to me, unless there's any others.
yeah, so then there was one other thing, it's on the second page under job description. It says supervision received. Works under the general supervision of the city manager. So that's how it was as is.
This is
the position
this
is
is the old one, Melissa, we have up here, the old one. It's not the one that you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so if you're looking at the packet that I just handed you, it's page 2. Supervision received works under the general supervision of the city manager. So I know it's an appointed position by the council and the mayor. Do we want to, I mean, do they work under the general supervision of the city manager or directly report to you?
I got a question for Grant, because in the state law, it does say that the police chief shall be under the direction, control, and supervision of the body that appointed him. Does that mean that we can just have the city manager, basically like what she's saying, work under the general supervision of the city manager?
You might need to.
Or, okay, sorry.
Yeah. I'm close to you.
I can hear you, but the recording may not be very good.
Yeah, so I'm concerned because state law does say that he should work under the direction, supervision, and control of the body that appoints him. How far can we go with that? Does that mean we can appoint somebody to supervise him
I think,
as a body?
yeah, for a lot of it, I think that you're fine to delegate it, but ultimately, you're still responsible for that oversight, even if you've delegated the day-to-day stuff to the city manager. But I think there is room in there for the code that you're talking about to still delegate it, but it still ultimately is your responsibility. You guys are the ones that do the appointment and are the ones that make decisions if they're gonna.
Because I like the idea of the council having a little bit more say on how he's supervised, but
And it's completely up to the council what authority you want to delegate.
I think on the regular day-to-day stuff, just the general, it might not be, and now that we've already changed the ordinance to where myself or me and the city manager are working closer together, there is a little more accountability there. So I'm okay with whatever as well. I think one of the biggest things is, I'll give you a quick example because I really want to see what the election's doing right now. But so Councilman Baird, at one point wanted to go and talk to Rick the way it was. He couldn't really go and talk to Rick, you know what I mean? So I see where he's directly appointed, that's a highly visible and a lot of liability there. And, there's a lot of concern from the city council with that, having that closer communication with that department head.
Which obviously wouldn't be to give direction, but to keep them accountable for some of the things that, so like, for instance, we have, I think in the past, I had some questions about the animal control, and this was in 2018, or, yeah, I think it was 2018, right when I got put in, because there was a kid adopted on the way to school, and I just want to see what I wasn't going to tell him to do anything, but I was discouraged from even talking to him about that.
I think what you're gonna find with Scott is he's totally okay with that, and the way we changed the ordinance already, I think, alludes to that anyway. The other thing is even having him and asking the department heads to come to our council meetings where we can, visit with them directly is another form of, it sounds like we've got.
Compared to the last city manager, this is how this is gonna work. My department heads will be here. If you have questions, concerns, or any of those types of things, we can address it, put it on the agenda and address it in open forum. I would hope you'd want more involvement in your departments, and that's what I hope to foster while I'm here. I want you to interact. I want you to see the things that are going on and see the needs that each department needs. Because if you guys aren't seeing that, we can't provide them the tools and resources they need in the department. So the information is gonna flow, whether I'm over here, him or not. It's just up to you what direction you want to go.
Totally different environment.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're everything covered. I mean, I don't have any concerns at this point, but recognizing that the mayor is also. I don't know, do you recommend changing the wording there or just kind of leave that?
I think our ordinance already says so under
I
our
think so too.
ordinance, everyone but Grant falls underneath the city manager and our city ordinance.
And that's where, when I talk about that you guys can delegate it, that's where I'm talking about that you also have the authority to change that. That's what I'm saying, it's up to you how much you delegate.
I think in ordinance, we also have that city council members can talk to department heads for information purposes. We can talk to any city employee.
So we've already addressed that.
I don't have a problem if you guys are doing that. That's not something I'm gonna say, hey, stop doing that. I'd rather you be sharing information back and forth. If you have questions, I'm not gonna step in their way and say, hey, don't give that to the council. We are your employees, and our job is to give you the information that you need to make the decisions for the city and to make the correct decisions and the best decisions. So the information sharing is something you're gonna get if that's what you want. So if that's what you're concerned about, all the department heads hopefully will be here, or if you want to talk to them on a side note, I'm fine with that. I'm not worried about that type of.
So, short answer, let's keep it.
Okay, and I was just gonna say too, I don't think it's inappropriate at all to just have everybody in that sentence, under the general supervision of the city manager, council, and the mayor. I mean, when you're talking about department heads and government agencies, we really are, responsible to all of the other department heads and all of the elected officials. And so we could add that too, if you wanted to do something like that. I think if you appoint them, you also should have some supervision clearly laid out, right? Because if they're appointed by you, then they're also ultimately, their employment status is determined by you.
So do we need to motion to change that, or you can change that regardless of if we make motions or not, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so
you don't.
I would say given all that we've said, I like what's there, and if you want to try to get something else in there that, could occasionally, have to discuss things with, I don't know, just for information purposes.
You got it.
Communication with,
My only recommendation or insight on that is we do not want to confuse that individual.
Right.
And we don't want him pitting us again, or, mom said no, go ask dad, those types of things. That makes sense. So we want to make sure that we're working together on that and that we're not being worked against each other on that.
I agree with that.
Okay, great. So we'll just leave that as is. And I think that's it. I was also going to ask about some of the testing and background check, if we wanted to list that in there. I mean, obviously they'll have a background check. But if you wanted to do any psych evals or any of those things, I like to list those in the job announcement so applicants know that it's coming. Just like you'd say, we drug test, right? And so if that was part of the process, If you're thinking in the background, then I will add that to the.
I would say, so if you're going for a chief job or an executive position, generally, and Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, I've never seen a chief go in for a polygraph or a psychological.
Okay.
So I've never seen that. Line guys, yes, when they're first
Okay.
into their career. But if we're hiring someone seasoned, they've already been through the polygraphs, they've always been through the psychologicals.
Okay.
They've already been through that. Yes, it would be our due diligence to put them through a rigorous background
Sure.
investigation, a rigorous reference check, and then also the formality of the drug screening and doing those types of things.
Yeah, okay.
That would be my recommendation.
The one thing, and not necessarily a recommendation, but one more of a question for you, Scott, is if we don't put it in there, then it kind of takes away the ability to do it. The one reason I see maybe to list it is that if something comes up, and I would expect it to be probably something in a background check or something, that if it raised a red flag and you wanted to follow up, if you listed in here, it would still be an option. If you don't, it's arguable whether.
You could probably put it in the languages, the process may include some or all of the.
Yeah, that was my
And
intention.
then just list them all.
That's,
So then if we ever have a concern, we still have that option.
that,
I would agree with that.
Okay, so I think that's it. So if you.
Sorry, Mark, I just got one question on the essential functions. Is that from the previous
Job description.
job description?
Mhm.
So that covers pretty much, there's nothing that needs to be edited or.
Not that I saw, and like I said, I did review it. I did compare it to some other job descriptions for other.
That's fine. My concern was since we can talk to animal shelter, but it is listed in there, so I'm good with that. I just wanted to
Yeah,
just verify that we got it listed the way we want, I guess.
sure.
And you feel comfortable with that?
I feel like we've got yeah, I think we've got it. The other good thing, right, job descriptions are so fluid that, we can change it whenever we need to. But I think this gives at least a good enough idea that they know what they're.
And I'm good with that. I just was double
Yeah.
checking because I was looking for that specifically. Just to make sure, since I know that's under their purview and I want to make sure that we addressed it. I couldn't find it initially, I had to read through and I found it. And so I just want to make sure. So thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Any other questions, concerns? We okay?
I like how it is. How soon can we get this advertised out, and how do you plan on getting it out statewide? I mean, what avenues do you think? I'm just wondering, like,
No, yeah,
how are we
sure.
gonna get this done?
So there's a couple different tools that I will likely use. Some are like really standard, right? I'll use all those job posting boards like Indeed and some of those other things. I've had a lot of success with higher level positions with LinkedIn. And so I intended to get it up on LinkedIn. And I have a pretty good network already built of law enforcement on LinkedIn. I bet you do too.
I was also going to say you might want to use the ICMA page, the International City Managers
Yes.
page. A lot of about 80% of the city managers are on that page, and a lot of the chiefs of police are on that page. They actually post a lot of in-state chiefs of police positions on ICMA. I would suggest using that portal.
Another one I'd suggest is Utah League of Cities and Towns as well.
There's a couple of job boards for counties, and I thought I would pop it up there too. You might be able to steal a sheriff.
And then the government jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's like a standard, there's probably about 25 different job boards that I just generally use. And so I'll put them there. If we're finding we're not getting a lot of good applicants, then maybe we do a mailer or something like that. But I think we'll probably do okay in the economy that we're, I mean, I don't foresee us struggling to recruit.
Yeah, and I think the climate that we're in,
Exactly.
not only national, statewide, and everything else.
I would also reach out to the Federation of FOP. They'll put out, because pretty much every cop I know is a member of the FOP, and they have direct connections to all LEOs in Utah. They put out bulletins like that all the time, so I reach out to the FOP and have them put it out to all their members.
You bet.
Just call Seattle, they're trying to.
We don't want out-of-staters, sorry, not for this position.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, the idea is to focus on Utah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just using timeline. What's I know there's not a rush or anything necessarily, but.
There is, kind of.
Yeah, that's what I'm just
Yeah,
kind
so-
of what the timeline thought was.
It'll be up, it'll probably be up tomorrow, everywhere that I can get it up. And then I will list it open until filled unless you hate that. I don't like closing dates. I think they kind of lock you into an imaginary date that if you get really great applicants, then you're waiting for 2 weeks until your close date to start interviewing, right? If I post a job and the next day I have an amazing applicant, then set up the interview the next, you know what I mean? Like we can move as quick as you want to. So I'll just put it until filled. I can send you resumes as they come in or however you would like me to do that and just kind of obviously screen them and not send you the ridiculous ones. And then when you're ready to interview and we feel like we have a good enough selection, we'll do it.
Yeah, I'd like to see the resumes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. Yeah, so as they come, I'll just send them to everyone. And like I said, I think when we get 4, 5, 6 that we think are qualified, then we should set up interviews.
Do you guys want it, so there's gonna be the minimum qualifications on there. Do you want Melissa to screen those ones out that don't hit the minimums?
For now, I
Or do
would
you
want
wanna see
I would
all
put
of
them in another
Yeah,
batch, because then same thing we did with the city manager. If we don't find somebody with all the qualifications we want, then we'll open it back up and start looking at this pool also.
yeah, my intention was to only send you ones we're looking at.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get wacky ones. We had a forklift operator apply for our deputy attorney job. One time.
Did you
I got it.
Also, I won't send those to you guys.
Okay,
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. Oh, and I'll work with Lee, obviously, to blast it on social media, and all the Roosevelt stuff too.
So will there be a minimum time it'll be open though? Because like, say we get 6 good candidates within 4 days.
I'd like to
Or
see
is
it at least
everybody-
3 weeks,
I guess
2 to 3 weeks.
Yes.
Realistically though, it would probably take that long to go through interviews and everything, and then you could still be considering the new ones that are coming.
That's what I was just gonna say. So if you get 5, do interviews, don't close it. Continue to receive stuff, do those 5, see what you've gotten in the meantime or whatever.
Cool.
Because you only need 1, right? You need 1 great candidate, that's all you need. And if you do the 5 and the one's not in there, then you just keep going.
And don't sell. If you guys don't like them, let's continue the process and put the right person in the job. Don't feel like you have to, like, take someone just because you need someone in that position. When we do stuff like that, we get wrong people in positions. If you guys are not comfortable with that person,
We're not gonna say.
let's continue the process and get the right person.
But at the same time, I like the idea of interviewing a lot of candidates, because then you'll know, yes, it'll become obvious who that guy is.
Yeah, I agree with you. And also, I think if you do them kind of a chunk at a time, like we've got 5 good ones, let's do it, and then we'll wait a couple of weeks maybe, and then we'll do 5 more. Because if you try to do 10 or 12 in one chunk, they all run together, and it can get confusing and hard. I think you're better to do them in smaller groups.
Sounds good.
So,
Do we need a motion? Let's go ahead and entertain a motion to move forward, I guess.
I'll move forward on advertising for a police chief with the adjustments that were suggested in our discussion.
Second. We have a second by Councilman Allen, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Melissa.
thanks, you bet.
All right, last thing. City ordinance fixed discussion. You want to take this one, Grant?
Okay, so, I asked, and Scott helped me out with this, it's something that we've been a little bit behind on, because in the 2020 general session, Senate Bill 202 limited the offenses that cities can designate to be Class B misdemeanors. What it says is that a municipality may not impose a criminal penalty greater than infraction for a violation pertaining to an individual's pet or use of the individual's residence, except under certain circumstances. And those are that if it is a nuisance and threatens the health, safety, or welfare of the individual who's violating, or a third party, then they can be charged with a misdemeanor. The other exception is if a fine has been imposed 3 times within the prior 12-month period, then it can also be enhanced to a misdemeanor. But so this would have taken effect in May, which is why I said we're a little bit behind on this. But rather than going through the entire code right now and trying to find every place we designated a misdemeanor, what I've done is create the proposed ordinance that I hope was sent to you guys in advance. But it's just that the first of the code, we say that notwithstanding any other penalty provisions within the code, that we're making them infractions for the time being.
And again, this is just a temporary fix. So we've got to get our policies done first so we can go back into city ordinance because they're going to commingle. And then we'll go through all the city ordinances and clean up the penalty language in each one to reflect the new code. So this is just a Band-Aid for the problem right now so we can still use the code. But eventually we're going to have to go back and clean it all up. Any questions?
I guess my question is why is it just gonna take too long, and that's why we're just doing the Band-Aid?
Yes,
Yeah.
and so this is my intent to do, is to sit down with Grant and go through that entire thing and bring the whole packet back to you versus me bringing, this is what Harriman's going through right now. They're going through the entire codex and then they're gonna bring it in one packet to the council, because you don't wanna have to go through every single one of the chapters. It's just gonna take too long. The staff will go through it, we'll clean up the language with Grant, we'll get it all ready to go, and then we'll push it back and we can redline and show you the changes we've made on it. That way, you guys can take some time, go through it and say, yes, we approve it all, it's done. Because I think it's just overloaded, we're constantly overloading you with ordinances every week to update. Let's just do it all at once, push it out to you guys.
Is this gonna be, I guess my question is, if we're, because we're kind of trying to get to state code, right, to match. If state code's changing, is this something we're gonna end up having to do all the time, or is there a way to
No,
do
this,
so that we?
this is just the penalty section we're dealing with. So basically, so we have in our penalty sections for code, or the city ordinance, it says this is designated as a class C or this is designated as a class B. We need to go back and clean those up. There will only be a select few that we can designate. And I think that's gonna be like your aggressive dog bites that will qualify for that now, that meet the statute. Everything else is gonna be a pretty simple fix. It's just removing the designation of class C or B and just saying this is now an infraction.
And the way that the code had read previously is that if it wasn't specifically designated as something lower, then it was designated a class B misdemeanor, which is the highest that we could charge. And what the state legislature did was reverse that and said it has to be an infraction unless it fits into the criteria to enhance it. But to make that work, because it's kind of just totally flipped what we were doing around, we're going to need to take a close look, and there probably will be times, using the nuisances as an example, where we want to say that it's going to escalate if they've had 3 within the last 12 months, but that's going to take some time to work
Now,
that
is this
out.
just mostly dealing with everything, building permits, all that? So anything that's a criminal penalty that's involving, we're not talking about the civil penalty side. We're just dealing with criminal penalty. This now applies. So anywhere we have a criminal penalty attached, we have to go through that code and change it.
Okay, good. Thank you for the clarification. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it.
So Harriman's been going through this process, and it's not a easy process to go through. It's a lot of work, but the reality of it is we've got to get our policy and procedures fixed first, because they may commingle with our city ordinance. And so once that is straightened out and done, then we can now go into city ordinance and go back and make adjustments there and just make sure they're all merging together appropriately.
As part of this, what we approved last time, the company that helped with the.
That's gonna be our policy and procedure.
Well, they're gonna help with that part.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to have that done with 3 to 5 months. It just depends on how much time me and Melissa can get on that and get that process all through. Once we get done with that process, then we can bite off the city ordinance and start going down that process. I'll be on the ordinance side, Grant, it's probably gonna take us a good 12 months to get through that.
I would No, I think that would be very aggressive. It's probably achievable, but it would depend on what else we have.
We're looking at a year and a half because 3 to 5 months, 6 months
Yes.
for policies. Then even if we get the ordinances.
So Harriman decided not to do it themselves. They paid someone to do it. They're $250,000 into attorney's fixing it.
Wow.
And so it's a very, it's either you take the time to do it yourself or you pay a bunch of attorneys to go in and contract, but it's gonna cost you lots of money to do that. I think we can manage it. It's just gonna take us some time to get through it.
A motion, if I could. Yes, I have motion to move forward with this ordinance as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
A motion and second. We will.
It's where it's an ordinance, we're actually gonna have to go to a public hearing. So what we needed to do tonight, though, we still needed, your approval on it, Dave, to see if this is something that you wanted to do. But so the next process is that we'll set the public hearing and then after the public hearing.
Legally, we don't have to, but we should. So we need a motion to move it to a public hearing.
A motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I read that in the handbook. I had to show you that too.
There's
Only
exceptions.
on land use, certain ordinances you have to have a public hearing on. There's quite a few others that you don't. However, it is always suggested that you do. We should, and thanks for reminding us. I think that's it, for that. We'll get it on the next council agenda and get that taken care of. Okay, thank you, Grant. Are there any, let's see, purchase orders? I didn't see those come through. Those
We didn't have any.
Okay, reports from that committees, that's.
What about Mark Dennis property?
Oh, yeah,
That's on the list there.
I've got the old agenda.
Oh,
Really quickly, I'll bring that one up. So I visited with Nate Snow, he's the representative for Mark Dennis on that piece of property, that is adjacent to our walking path. And he had agreed at the price that we had set, so we just need an approval from the council, to purchase that piece of property and enter into a real estate contract with Mark Dennis on that. The amount that he accepted was $32,500. That is for approximately, do you want to bring that up real quick on the, just for the public to see? You go to BCGIS. Sorry. There you go. It's in that, your government section. And then you'll have to go to the.
CGIS map.
Yes. And it actually borders our property that we own with the, where the animal shelter is located also. So it kind of connects the area between the walking path and the animal shelter. I'm sure most everyone is aware there's a lot of biking trails and things like that in that area. We're trying to secure that piece of property to maintain those trails and keep those open to the public. And
Mark Dennis.
so that piece right there. How many acres? Will you scroll down on that? I think it's about 14.32 acres. So 14.32 acres for 32,500. What does that work out to an acre? 2,000. So that's kind of what we discussed. He was asking about 55,000, so he came down off that price by quite a bit. And you can see where it touches on the southeast corner of the walking path. Again, we own property where shelter is, and then we own some property on the other side. So the plan is to work with Duchesne County and kind of keep all of that there for trails and biking and those.
For Highway 40 access there at all, or do you have to access from, I can't remember, I know we talked about it.
Just not on Highway 40, but it does touch, that's not Summerall Lane.
Right by IFA there.
Yeah.
For IFA, that's what I meant, so it does have access from that.
And the building
Right,
where
Weatherston's there.
yeah, the building with the green roof right there is the animal shelter. So, and then we own, if you go, we scroll right, a little more, just barely, put your mouse right almost in the center. A little more right there, that, we own that also. And then if you go up, school district owns all that other property. And we're trying to tie all of that in. And you can see all the trails that go through that. And we're trying to, so we felt like that was a piece of the puzzle and pretty inexpensive.
This will be bike trails and
Yeah.
horse trails.
Mhm. Bike trails, walking paths, you know, motocross. Cross country, yeah, the cross country team, you know. So it's not real, honestly, it's not real good for anything else. So, but it would be cheap recreation for people, so. Any questions? I know we talked about that at length. We've been in closed session negotiating that, and now it's finally negotiated to the point where we can let the public know how much, those types of things. Any questions, concerns, thoughts? I don't. Okay. Would entertain a motion either way.
Move to proceed.
Okay, we have a motion to proceed. Second by Councilman Allen. Roll call, Councilman White. Aye. Councilman Busenbarg. Aye. Councilman Baird. Aye. And Councilman Allen. Aye. Okay, all in favor? Motion passes. I'll go ahead and get with Nate, and we will fill out that purchase contract for that amount, $32,500, and see where it goes from there.
That will be under purchase order.
Yeah, now this has all been verbal, and so once we get that purchase contract and it's signed, then we'll bring in.
Would this be an option for a cemetery?
Yeah. With Drew not here.
It's close to the other one. It's close, it's not that far, really.
It's really not. Really not. We could call it the, I don't know, haunted walk. That's on. So, hey, Dustin, do you have anything else for us as far as reports? Councilman Busenbarg,
No.
Councilman Baird?
I missed the financial meeting this morning.
It was canceled.
It was canceled. Okay, well, that makes me feel better.
I would have told you, I would have reminded you.
Okay, but the only other thing I could think of is, Don, or Councilman Rosenbach has mentioned to me that he's looked into recycling.
Scott did, and he told me and Mary told me, so we just need to put it on the agenda.
I would just recommend that we get on next meeting's agenda to get that approved, and move forward with that, so sounds good. That's my plan anyway.
Do you want me to invite the gentleman back?
I think we need to, yeah.
And go that direction.
And again, if they need, he mentioned at our last meeting that he would need around 100 customers to make it worth their time to do recycling in our area. Obviously, that's going to be all on him to do that.
Just put what needs approved. Just operate.
Well, I think we need to decide whether we're gonna allow them to put mailers into our water bills, to push it out, to publicize it, whether we're gonna support it, put it on our Facebook page, to say this is an option. I think that's something the mayor and council will need to decide, how much support are we gonna put behind that private entity.
And yeah, and so I think it's worth at least talking about and make an official decision.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you. Yeah, that's all I have.
I don't have anything other than what we've already discussed. Councilman Allen?
No.
Okay. Do you have anything else for us, Scott?
No, I think we've got everything
Do we need to go to,
We do. So
I move we go to closed session to talk about, to discuss
is it personnel that we're discussing? tonight?
personnel?
Did you still want closed session?
Not for that thing, but I think we do grant, right?
Yeah.
Yes, personnel, please.
And then come back out of closed session once we're done.
Okay,
Is that the correct motion, I think?
I believe so. We have a motion. And we have a second by Councilman Baird. Councilman Allen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Baird? Aye. Councilman Busenbarg?
Aye.
Councilman White?
Aye.
Okay. And we'll move into closed session. We'll take a couple minute recess really quick. Let the.
So,
What?
we
You can drop it
You
off.
can have the drop off.